I know the channel is primarily focused on older games, but we're going to make some exceptions for the new ones that are good and aren't filled with a ton of slop. And Dark Souls, I mean, is it even new anyway? The Dark Souls series is one that I have wanted to run through ever since I streamed Elden Ring on the channel over a year ago now. Really the start of the channel getting going again, I guess, before it entered quickly into an identity crisis. So I went ahead and got Dark Souls Remastered to start my journey. I heard that the remastered version was a pretty good, faithful adaptation to the original. I know little to nothing about the overall story or lore of the Dark Souls universe besides what I've absorbed kind of through cultural gaming osmosis, so this isn't going to be really heavy story-rich video content, and I apologize in advance if I get something really wrong, or with regards to that stuff. I'm new here, first playthrough. I'm just going to talk about some of the aspects that make it one of the only games I've played that I think is pretty close to a perfect game. I actually had to wait about a week to start gathering my thoughts on this one because there's a lot of moving parts in this game, and I can't wait to see what's encountered in New Game Plus, the DLCs, and trying to 100% the game. And all of that will be happening on this channel at some point, by the way. So right after some really badass music during the character creation page, probably the coolest character creation music I've ever encountered. I actually think it's my favorite song in the entire game. And then we get a really good opening cutscene showing off the main enemies that we're going to be encountering during the game. And we're hit right with one of my favorite parts about it. You learn you're an undead branded with a dark sign, led to the north, where you're locked away to await the end of the world. So immediately, this grim opening is somewhat of a breath of fresh air, in my opinion. It's quite the contrast to a lot of games that are coming out these days where right off the bat you're a hero, a savior, or some great one that has immense power over everything and all things. But nope, this game is just like you're meant to rot in this jail cell with the rats. But luckily this knight you find out is Oscar, saves you by throwing down a key to escape your cell, and thus begins the journey of feeling like a boy among men. But like I said, this feeling that you're somewhat worthless and overcoming impossible odds, kind of nice to feel, in my opinion. Every boss, well, most bosses anyway, seem completely impossible the first time you see them, but through some perseverance and a little bit of strategy, once learning out their move set and what you're up against, you're able to overcome, and it feels ever so more rewarding than just smashing in, steamrolling a boss like the Kool-Aid Man. I should also mention this feeling of helplessness, not just from the bosses that you get it. There's some areas where the just normal encounter enemies that you get in the regular world can feel pretty overbearing. I think the area that brought my strongest feeling of helplessness was the catacombs with those pinwheels, and it's the only area that was almost rage-inducing for me during the playthrough, honestly. I was led astray and went down to the end of the Tomb of the Giants, and I was hit with this yellow fog gate that I couldn't traverse yet, so I had to go backwards, and the area is pitch black, so going backwards in the dark, and outmaneuvering the giants, and then outrunning the pinwheels to make my way out of this mess. And it took quite a while. I'm sure it was not any type of good entertainment to be watching me stream it, but I just hate those pinwheels. It might have taken me an hour or two just to get out of there. Not gonna make it. There's no way I get in there. I need to mention that right here, and aspects like this is where I think some polarity can develop in the game. Well, kind of like breaking points. Because it feels like the game was being unfair by letting me do this instead of telling me where to go in the moment. And honestly, luckily I was streaming and I felt some sort of a duty of sorts to my viewers to keep going with the game. Because if I was doing this playthrough on my own time, it might have been a point where I take like a week break because I'm so pissed off, and then it just ends up sitting in my basement unfinished for years. But through doing this and through the struggle, I realized that it's just kind of what the game is. It's not really unfair that the game let me go where I shouldn't, and it was a bit difficult for my current level. That was on me, and I basically had to deal with my choices and get out of the trenches. The game didn't tell me to go there, it just lets you make your decisions. What you decide to do will make that journey easier or more difficult for you. And I feel like you either see this as kind of a worthy challenge in a video game, or you're turned off by it. And I kind of understand both lines of thought, personally. I'm sure not everyone wants to be sweating bullets and raising their blood pressure when they play a video game. I will say, though, if you stick it out and learn the formula and understand that the reward system in this game is the feeling of accomplishment, I do think it's well worth it. So with that being said, another strong point of the game, I think, is the overall atmosphere and the locations of the game, and they pair extremely well with those sensations you feel from the nature of your character and the enemy and boss ranks and all that stuff. So the overall feeling is very dark and dreary as the fire fades for the most part, but there are a few locations where you're going to want to, stop and praise the sun. Look at that, man. Look at those god rays coming through. Pretty healthy amount of unique locations also to be explored, and they're all done in that Dark Souls way, which is an expression I think I can use to describe something nowadays. And they're also all put together in a nice construction of the world. Quite satisfying, finding different ways that things are oriented and connected for shortcuts and alternate paths. It's very nice. For instance, I'll never forget when I was struggling at the beginning and I found this elevator in this church thing, a cathedral, I don't know, and it takes you back down to Firelink Shrine. So there's just something extremely satisfying about learning more about the layout of the actual world and map as you go. There's a lot of aha moments, so that's where I am. That's where I'm going through now, and you get that a lot as you're going through the new areas. I'm a big fan of the eeriness of no background music while you're playing. As you go throughout, it's just you, the enemy jump scares, and the clink, 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 clank of your armor. Jeez. As you're trying to balance not fat rolling with that. And then this just also makes the music of entering a fog gate and confronting a boss feel so much more kind of immense, in my opinion. The lonesome feeling of traversing the world, and then you just get smacked in the face with that sweet boss music. It just hits even harder. Kind of just a little example with the atmosphere and world building that shows you they pay attention is a fun little thing I learned towards the end of the game. Actually, I learned it. The bells that you hear ringing throughout your own playthrough, which is like a primary part of the game, is ringing the bells in these bell towers, are when other players ring the bells in the bell towers in their games. So it's kind of driving me crazy, and luckily someone was able to inform me in chat, towards the end of my playthrough that that's what's going on. And I thought it was really cool, and I just wanted to share that as a little tidbit in case anyone didn't know. Most people probably do. So all these things mentioned being put together with the extremely good combat loops, which I'm not even going to go into because I know it's been done plenty before me, are more than enough to keep you engaged from start to finish. But kind of like a cherry on top of that is the game rewards you for exploring this difficult world with great atmosphere in a couple of unique ways. You might find a non-essential boss, which there's some that I didn't beat on my first playthrough, a useful item, an armor set that's great for your build, or even a unique weapon. For instance, I found a weapon when I chopped Seath the Scaleless's tail off, and it's kind of these covert rewards for exploration that keep you on your toes and just keep you interacting with everything, smashing walls with your sword, looking for illusory walls, and, searching every alleyway, looking down off bridges to see if there's something you could jump onto. You're just always looking and interacting with your world, and it makes you take it all in. It does a really good job of driving that home. If I was going to give kind of like the perfect example to show how the game brings all of this together in one location, it's one I stumbled across kind of by accident, although with a little help from chat while streaming. That area being the painted world of Ariamis. I might be butchering that. It's a completely optional location, and that even some people in my chat who've done multiple playthroughs said they haven't explored it yet. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then to even be able to get into this location, you have to revisit the tutorial location called the Undead Asylum and go back to your holding cell and acquire an item called the Peculiar Doll, which even figuring this out is quite the challenge. You need to find this bird's nest and stay here for an extended period of time, at which the crow will fly you back home. And this is the part that chat helped me out with, talk about rewarding exploration. And then once you get the doll, nothing really happens. And then you happen to stumble upon the right spot in the game. Luckily I did. You get sucked into this painting that's in Anne Orlando, which is heavily guarded, and it's at the bottom of this hall. And through doing this, it just so happened that I found my favorite location in the game, and it's not even mandatory. Glad I found it. Kind of a sucker for snowy locations in games, and if you ever want to go looking into the lore of this location, it gets even crazier. I'm kind of a novice at this point, and I'm not really in the position to be doing lore videos yet, but something like the girl who created this world basically didn't belong in the world we're in, so she gets trapped in this painting, and it's been guarded for a very long time by these soldiers to the point where they forget what they're actually guarding. It's pretty intense. Go check that out if you're interested. It's wild that this is just an optional part of the game. So those are the three biggest things, kind of beyond, just story and things like that I think keep you really engaged with this game. And obviously this is in addition to the many things that I mentioned before, like combat loops and interesting enemies, replayability, but I know there's exhaustive amounts of videos on those topics. So I kind of wanted to really think about, what glues that together. And I should also mention the two reasons I say that Dark Souls is nearly perfect for me is because I would have liked a little bit more story and lore explained within the game itself. But I do understand why they do it this way. This is just personal preference. You could also probably make the case that this is a positive because for the community, I've already seen there's books written on lore and things of that nature, and channels dedicated to that, and even some speculation videos. So it's pretty cool to see that level of community for a game. And then the other thing that was kind of a letdown was the final boss/ending, honestly. The atmosphere of it was pretty cool and everything looked nice, but it just wasn't very challenging, honestly. Just parry, attack, and repeat. And I almost didn't want to put this in this video even, because there might be lore that I'm missing as to why Gwyn wasn't much of a challenge. But I just want to be honest with my impression of the game, and as I was playing it, I just felt underwhelmed by it. But maybe as I play more, I'll come back and have to amend my thoughts with a fuller explanation. But I definitely did expect a big burrito supreme ending, and I didn't feel like I got that. So that's it, guys. If an overall score that I'd give to this is probably like a 9.5 out of 10. I'm not trying to bring the game down with those final things I said, just trying to be honest with how I felt while playing it. But it's pretty difficult for me to say I had a better time with another RPG on my first experience at this point. Like, nothing comes to my mind really that beats it. It's definitely up there with the greats. So, like I said, definitely we will be doing another run of this New Game Plus, Dark Souls 2, all the FromSoft games will be probably coming to the stream. So I look forward to experiencing more with this world, and I highly recommend this one if you haven't played it already. So until next time, guys, take care and peace.